Shalom. Giving our praises, glory, and honors unto Yahweh, by Hashem, Yahweh Shai, by Hashem, Rakah Kudash. Double honors to the apostles, bishops of Great Millstone. Peace and blessings to the hopeful elect. This is your brother Zion from GMS Atlanta. I'm back with another edifying video. And this will deal with Qawas, the god of the Edomites. Or who is the god of the Edomites? And so I just did a quick Google search, simple Google search. Matter of fact, let's hit this again. So this is what it says here. The Edomites' national god was Qawas, also known as Qawas or Qawas. He was the Edomite counterpart to Yahweh, the Idumean god. Okay? It says the national Edomite deity is called Qawas, pronounced Qawas. Prior to the Persian period, the primary evidence for Qawas' status as the Edomite national deity comes from the 8th to 7th century records of the Neo-Assyrian kings Tiglath-Pileser III, Esarhaddon, and Ashurbanipal. So, who we know is Esau or Edom, has their own power. Okay? Now, what I found when looking into this was something interesting. So, when we first came into this truth, when the apostles first came on YouTube many moons ago, there wasn't much information on who the god of Edom was. And he's not really mentioned in the scriptures, but there's a number of different sources and articles and things that scholars have said about Qawas, the god of Edom, over the last few years. And I'm just going to read some of this. So let's do this here. So this is Qawas, right? The deity. So it's Qawas, okay, was the national god of the Edomites. He was the Idumean structural parallel to Yahweh. The name occurs only twice in the Old Testament. If a possible allusion in an otherwise corrupted text in the book of Proverbs is excluded, which is one in the book of Ezra and one in Nehemiah, as an element in a personal name, Bar Qawas, or son of Qawas. Referring to the father or family or clan of perhaps Edomite, Idumean temple helpers returning from the Babylonian exile. Outside the Bible, Qawas is frequently invoked in names found on documents recovered from excavations in Elephantine, where a mixed population of Arabs, Jays, and Idumeans lived under the protection of a Persian Mesopotamian garrison. All right, so it says the word Qawas. It says it's never used on its own in the Tanakh, which is the Old Testament, the law and the writings and the prophets. However, it does unambiguously appear twice as an element in a personal name in Ezra 2:53 and Nehemiah 7:55 as Bar-Qawas, son of Qawas. The name of Qawas itself may mean bow or bow. So let's look this up. Let's go to Ezra 2 and 53. All right. Okay, so this is under the Levites returning. So this doesn't have anything to do with Idumeans. Okay? This is dealing with the sons of Levi returning during the time of the second temple being rebuilt. Ezra 2 and 53. It says the children of Barkos, the children of Sisera, the children of Damah. So all of these are dealing with the Levites returning back. Okay? So let's look up this word Barkos in the Hebrew. Which is Bar-Qawas, which means Bar-Qawas, the son cut off, head of a family of temple slaves who returned from exile with Zerubbabel. Which it doesn't say anything about Idumeans. Now, the word bar in the Hebrew here, bar, means son, which is also son in the word for son in the Aramaic. And then you have Qawas. And here they have it to mean the son cut off. All right, okay, now down here it mentions the two scriptures. We read Ezra, so let's read Nehemiah 7 and 55, which pretty much says the same thing. The children of Bar-Qawas, the children of Sisera, the children of Tamah. So there's not really much in the scriptures pertaining to Qawas. Okay. So now this is what I noticed when I was going into, because there's a lot here to unpack, and I can't really go into all of this in a full lesson, so you can do your research further. But what I want to do is I want to read about this here. Let me see. Let me make sure. Now it does mention that the Edomites may have worshiped Yahweh, which makes sense because they are the sons of Isaac, who is the son of Abraham. Now back then, they didn't worship their Heavenly Father as the Israelites did in the time of Moses, to what we understand, but they did know who the Most High was. They just didn't have Yahweh as his personal, proper name until he gave it to Moses during the time of the Exodus. Right? So this is interesting here, dealing with this image. Right? So what this image is, an image of Atergatas, a Nabatean goddess of fruits and fertility, which was found in 1936. And if you look at the top of this goddess's head, there's an eagle. Okay, an eagle. So now it says here, the Nabatean depiction of the goddess Atargatis, dating from circa AD 100, the eagle on her head is believed to be a symbol of Qawas. So one of the symbols that represent the Edomite god Qawas was an eagle, which would tie back into the symbol of Esau today being the eagle for the U.S. and also the eagle for the Romans. All right? So this is just more and more tying in back to who we've been telling you all along, that the people of Edom are who they call the Caucasians today. So now, let's see here. Let's see if I can find it again. Okay, right. So now when you go to the Edomites, right? Oh no, this is dealing with the language. Okay, bear with me 1 second. Let's get to the Edomite language. Well, the Edomite language was Hebrew. Okay. Right. Which I did a lesson on the Hebrew not too long ago. On what was the first nation? I'm sorry, the first language of the nations before the flood, and it was Hebrew. Okay, because pretty much all the languages stem back in some shape or form to the Hebrew, or what they call the Phoenician alphabet. Let's see here. Okay, Edom. Okay, yep. So this is what I want to bring out real quick. Now this is under Edom. Now when you look under Edom, right, it tells you about how the Greek people called them Idumeans. All right. But it's going to show you or bring out here. Let's see. Now this is going into the history of Edom. But there's a point where it mentions that the Edomites and the Romans are the same. Okay? Now this is a history here. So it says, once pushed out of their territory, right, which is by Nebuchadnezzar, when they took down Judah, it says the Edomites settled during the Persian period in an area comprising the southern hills of Judea down to the area north of Beersheba. The people appear under a Greek form of their old name as Idumeans, a term that was used in the Hellenistic and Roman periods, also mentioned in the New Testament. During the 2nd century BC, the Edomites were first forcibly converted to Judaism by the Hasmoneans, which were Israelites, the Levites, going back to Judas Maccabees and his family, and were incorporated into the Israelite population. Other scholars believe that the assimilation was voluntary, but so you had Edomites back then following the laws, the statutes, and the commandments. Okay. Let's see. I want to see if I can find that point. And this goes into the whole history with Edom. And let's see here. Now it says that after the Jaish-Rumen wars, the Idumean people disappear from written history, though the geographical region of Idumea is still referred to at the time of Jerome. So this is what vocab would say. Well, see, there are no more Edomites. They were done away with. All right? But I'm trying to find it. I'm going to show you something about what is actually going on with the Idumeans. Okay? Now, going back to Qawas, right? It says the nature, right, of Edomite religion is largely unknown before their conversion to Judaism by the Hasmoneans. Epigraphical evidence suggests that the national god of Edom was Qawas. And since Qawas is invoked in the blessing formula and letters and appear in personal names found in ancient Edom as close relatives of other Levantine Semites and Arabs, right? Moabites, Ammonites, the Israelites, they're all relatives of each other through Abraham, Isaac. All right. And of course, Jacob is a brother of Esau, Edom. It says they seem to have worshipped such gods as El, Baal, and Uzzah. Now it says in some Jewish tradition stemming from their book, the descendants of Esau are the Romans, and to a larger extent, all Europeans. So you had Edomites that became the Romans, right, and the Greeks. Now, when you go into the history, Philip of Macedon, who was the father of Alexander the Great, his lineage went back to Esau, Edom, right, known as Hagag or the Agagite. Okay, so let's look up. Let's go to the Apocrypha. All right, and let's look up. You know what? Let me do this. Let's go back to Google and let's look up Hagag, the Hagagite, right, in the KJV, or Agagite. And now it says, Agagite in the KJV Bible. Now, when you do the history, I'll just read this Esther 3:3-10. And the king took his ring from his hand and gave it unto Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, the enemy of the Israelites. Now, Agag was one of the was one of the king of Edom, right? Going back to Amalek. Okay. And now when you go into Agagite in the KJV, I'm just go through this brief history real quick. Right? Agag. You know what? I'm gonna just do it in the blue letter. Right? Blue letter Bible, where it mentions Agag, Strong's H90. Agag was the king of Amalek, spared by Saul, but slain by Samuel, and can be found in 1 Samuel 15:8. And he took Agag, the king of the Amalekites, alive, and utterly destroyed all the people with the edge of the sword. And Amalek was one of the sons of Edom. Okay? When you go into Amalek, which is Imalak in the Hebrew, he was the son of Eliphaz by his concubine Timnah, which was the grandson of Esau and progenitor of a tribe of people in southern Canaan. And then you have the descendants of Amalek. All right. Now, I brought that out. In reference to Hagag. Let's see here, because it should be found in the Apocrypha. All right, Hagar. You know, because certain words sometimes are mentioned, same names, but different spelling, right? Let's see. So let's look up Agag. So you know what? So let's see here. Let's pull up the Apocrypha. Let's go to 1 Maccabees. 1 Maccabees 1. Right? So this is 1 Maccabees 1. It says, and it happened after that Alexander, son of Philip the Macedonian, who came out of the land of Chetam, had smitten Darius, king of the Persians and Medes, that he reigned in his stead, the first over Greece. Okay, so now let's look up Philip the Macedonian. So let's look up Philip the Macedonian. Okay. Now, Philip of Macedon should go back to the Agagites or Hagag. I don't know why it's not. Because see, Esau likes to hide a lot of this history. All right. But if you do the research, you will find okay, here we go. Okay, so let me see here. Okay, so this is under Macedonia. So this is from the International Standard Bible Encyclopedia Online under Macedonia. So let's see if I can find what I'm looking for here. What I'm looking for here. All right. So let's do a search for Agag. Sorry. Okay, here we go. Found it. So now it says okay, it was in Esther. So it says now the additions to Esther in 1610 as a Macedonian, an alien in truth from the Persian blood, and for the attribution to him of a plot to transfer the Persian Empire to the Macedonians. And this same thought appears in the Septuagint's rendering of the Hebrew Agagite in Esther 9:24 as Macedonian Macedon. Okay. And this is dealing with Alexander. All right. So let's go back to the Apocrypha. And let's go to, let's see, the rest of Ezra. I'm sorry, additions to Esther 16. Okay, here we go. So now it says, for Ammon, a Macedonian, the son of Ammedatha. Now we know when we read in the Bible that Haman was known as an Agagite. And I showed you that earlier. So Macedonian and Agagite are synonymous with each other. It says, for Ammon, a Macedonian, the son of Ammedatha, being indeed a stranger from the Persian blood, and is far distant from our goodness, and as a stranger received of us. Okay. So this is why the Apocrypha is important. Okay. So now, if the Macedonians are actually Agagites, then that would mean that they are still around today. Okay? All right. Because the Macedonians, which were the Greeks, were also Europeans, just as the Romans. Okay? Um, so going back here, so it says, in some Jewish tradition stemming from the Talmud, the descendants of Esau are the Romans, and to a larger extent, all Europeans, which goes back to Europe being taken from the true people of Europe, the people of Japhet, which are dark-skinned people, taken over by Philip the Macedonian or Philip the Agagite. And that transferred to the Romans, because the Romans are also Edomites. The Greeks were also Edomites. All right? And so their god was Qawas, which one of the symbols for Qawas was the eagle. Okay? Right, from here. Okay, the eagle on her head is believed to be a symbol of Qawas. Okay? Now it says Quastabaris the first, whose name meant Qawas is mighty, was a native Idumean descended from a priestly family attached to this cult. After Herod, which is Herod the Great, during the time of Yahushua, had placed him in command over Idumea, Quastabaris, supported by Cleopatra, eventually tried to prize the kingdom from Herod's Judea. In order to garner local support for his defection, which Herod the Great, we know that Herod the Great was also an Idumean, which was set over the province at that time of Rome, over Judea, underneath the Romans, which were also Edomites or Idumeans. So they were all Edomites. It says he revived the old cult of Qawas, perhaps to get Idumea's rural population still attached to its traditional gods to back him. So this is the original god or power of the Edomites, Qawas. And one of its symbols was the eagle. Okay? Which is the same eagle symbol used today in Europe, in ancient Rome, all right, in Europe, and today with America. So I just wanted to bring out some information on Qawas. It's not much scriptural information, but there's a lot of history and things that have been discovered over time. So I hope this was an edifying lesson. Matter of fact, let's get an image. You can see here, Qawas looks like a small hat. You know, as Apostle Hart says, it looked like, Barry Manilow. So they had their own power. They had their own God. They strayed away from Abraham and Isaac's power, and they had their own worship, heathen worship. So with that, I'll say shalom.